And thank you so much for joining me on Friday. I know Friday is not the best day of the week, but hey, it's got to be done, right? And Friday is my day off. I always put it aside so then I can do this and I can do other things that are more important. And we are going to start, and today we are all talking about self-awareness development in leadership development. And why do I want to talk about this topic? Because this is the most fascinating topic for me. And I want to start with a quote that Nietzsche said. And Nietzsche said that a man's worth, or character rather, I would like to say, rephrase Nietzsche, is a brave thing to do, but hey, Nietzsche said that the man's character was determined by how much truth he can tolerate. And if you think about this one simple sentence, how much truth I can tolerate, this is very deep, and because the truth is very difficult. But the truth is self-development. You cannot develop with average, vanilla, wishy-washy kind of feedback, leadership content that is not even aligned to who you are, because the truth will develop you. That's why we say life will teach you a lesson, because life is not going to, sugarcoat the message. So life is always the greatest teacher. Why? Because life doesn't have its way of sugarcoating. It's going to present you with the truth, and you're going to have to deal with it. And the best way to deal with it is, or the best equipped way of dealing with it, is knowing who you are. And unfortunately, leaders don't like to, they are afraid of who you are, what they are going to find. And I have trained and coached hundreds of managers and supervisors, mid-managers, and even senior leaders. And they have one common characteristics. They are afraid to know who they are. Unfortunately, there is no professional development without self-awareness. And when you are afraid to who you are, it's really all about afraid to see and look, because you are scared of what you are going to find. We are very scary, and we prefer to have this fantastic picture about ourselves. This is who we are. This is how we do things. I'm really good leader. I have heard that many times from leaders. I'm a fantastic leader. Or I heard from leaders, you know what? I normally take feedback, but I'm not going to take this feedback because that's just not true. So leaders afraid to know who they are. And therefore they don't even go there. But unfortunately, if you can't face it, you can't solve it, right? If you can't face a problem, you will not be able to solve the problem. If you can't face yourself, and if you don't know who you are, how do you want to lead others? Because this is the question, right? This is the question. If I don't know who I am, how am I going to lead others? Because people actually demand, my team members want me to know who I am, and they want me to know who they are at the same time. Now, I'm going to share with you later on a couple of strategies that you can, or two areas where I work with in terms of developing self-awareness in leaders. And once again, it is not a comfort exercise. And you need to be kind of qualified to do that, in the sense that you need to be able to deal with what the outcome is. So if you start poking the bear is going to come after you, and you have to be able to deal with that. Whether it's you do these exercises with yourself or with others, with the coaches or your professional or other professionals, you need to be able to do that. Now, self-awareness development is, as we mentioned, is missing from almost every corporate program. And as a result, managers and leaders are walking around oblivious to who they are. They often confuse the mask they put on. We all do that. We put on the mask, right? And then we make it our own identity. We paint a picture that has nothing to do with us. Sometimes leaders are straight up delusional. I have worked with a few of them. They were very delusional about their identity, who they are, the capability, their leadership skill, their likability, power, or productivity. And I have faced that many times, that, when leaders say, I'm a fantastic leader, and then you start talking to the team members and you find the exact opposite. And there is one thing they fear the most, failure, but not in a literal sense. So failure is something that they don't really like. But to them, failure somehow looks different. Failure to them is being confronted by the inadequacies. And who likes to be confronted and face their, shortcomings? And these confrontations come from feedback from the team members, right? From the team, a debate over a project. A simple mistake on an Excel sheet or a spelling mistake in an email can throw off a senior leader. You have no idea things that I have witnessed in corporate. VPs are scared sending out an email because what if there is a typo in there, and what other people are going to think about me? But before we even go there to that far, let's look at what is self-awareness. So definition is always a foundation for everything that we do. Define what do we mean, because otherwise nobody is on the same page, right? We are going to end up being in a different book if we don't go down to definition. So I always start with the definition of the topic that I talk about. So the definition is understanding or definition of self-awareness is understanding your own thoughts, feelings, values, your beliefs, and actions. How does one respond to the world, right? Why do we respond in certain ways to the world, and how the world responds to us? Now, if we start with that, how do I respond to the world? And why do I respond in such a way? And how does the world respond to me? This is where the conversation starts. And this is where we start asking questions and looking at strategies, how we can develop that in leaders. So looking into the mirror is very, very hard, especially for people with low confidence and self-esteem. And those who get into the certain positions, leaders we are talking about, based on who they know, rather than on the qualification or the expertise, they are going to struggle. You combine incompetence with lack of self-awareness and the high ego. It is a straight way to hell for everybody, not only for the leader, but mainly for the team members around them. Now, let's start with two areas. So if you have a piece of paper, you can just divide your page into two areas. So I'm going to walk you through what needs to be, or how you can look at all that and structure it. So the first one is a very basic principle that we cannot develop leaders in isolation from their team. They must work together, because the key measurement of any of leadership quality is how the team feels about them. So it always amazes me how we develop people, leaders, without any input from their team members. It is the team members who are going to give you the information, what they need from that leader. It is those are the team members who is going to give you, what is the leader really good at and what is the leader not really good at. So not involving a team member, it's an absolute no. But before we do that, first we need to get the team, the leader, to be very aware of who he or she is, right? Now, I run 2 assessments to find out who the person is. And one of them is the Big 5, is the personality assessment. And the Big 5 is really tells you who you are. And I only do that with senior leaders, because you need to be very, very mature to run that assessment. So the Big 5, everybody knows the Big 5 hopefully is an assessment that psychology accepts and is psychometrically obviously valid. And this is what psychologists like to work with. Please do not work with MBTI and all that kind of things, which is MBTI is not psychometrically valid, but just check validity data always before you do that. Now, so the Big 5 personality test, it assesses the leaders. Once again, it's only for senior leaders because it presents you the harsh truth. And it presents the participants or anybody who does the assessment with 5 areas. So one of them is agreeableness, extroversion, conscientiousness, openness, and neuroticism. So what does it mean for me? And this is when we start asking questions, right? What does it mean if I'm a leader and I'm very high on agreeableness? How do I impact my team members if I'm very high on neuroticism? Neuroticism is responsiveness to very high level of negative emotions, right? So sometimes you meet people, they always complain, they are always upset, they always have a problem, they just see the world in a very negative way. They might be very high on neuroticism. Now, are they the best leaders to have around? Well, we cannot make selection and hire people based on that. But what we can do through this self-awareness development is really identifying where do I fall under these 5 categories and what does it mean for me. So sometimes I do that with leaders, and or when I do that with leaders, sometimes they look at me and they say, is it really? This is why I have been behaving and acting in that way? It's all written right in front of me, that I'm not compassionate. So what it means that I'm not interested in people's problems. But as a leader, all I have to deal with is people's problems. And that's why I don't feel doing it. That's why I get very frustrated. That's why I feel very uncomfortable. Now what can we do when we find a leader who is very low on compassion, but all he has to do or she has to do is every single day in a leadership position is deal with people's problems? And these are the sessions, these are the coaching sessions that we provide to leaders and help them to identify, why you are behaving in certain ways. Why do we act? Because when we figure this out, then we can create strategies around those areas and manage you much better. But sometimes, or most of the time, I have to say, self-awareness already is a massive help. So me knowing that I'm very low on agreeableness, and that means that I'm not afraid to enter a conflict, it's a great, way knowing myself. If I know that I'm high on assertiveness, I'm not going, or if an L&D professional would know that the person is very high on assertiveness, we wouldn't be sending people or leaders on assertiveness training, so we would be saving that money, right? So it all goes back to your ROI as well. This is not only for the leader. And so then we're looking at the big 5, the personality profile. Some people there are combinations, right? Some profile, it's really equipped, those people are equipped to be entrepreneurs. Some people are equipped to work within a system. And we can see that from their personality profile very, very quickly. And then we can advise them and create strategies around those problems. The second assessment that I run, and you can always do that, is the Clifton Strengths Assessment. So that most of the times, these 2 assessments, they correlate with each other. So I'll see the correlation very, very easily. When I see, the Clifton Strengths Assessment, I can only draw up somebody's personality assessment or personality profile. It's so interesting how they all link together. So the strengths assessment is really getting to know yourself. What is it that you are good at? What is it that you are not really good at? What is your natural talent? We are not looking for skills. We are looking for your natural talent. How can I leverage that, right? So instead of building skills I always say to leaders that if you want to survive, learn skills that compensate for your talent, right? But if you really want to excel, learn skills that capitalize your existing talent. Because talent and skills is very, very different. Skills we can learn, but what kind of skills do we need to learn based on our talent profile? Because once again, we are going back. If Sylvia is very low in compassion, for example, I score very low in compassion, and now you want to send me for empathy training and listening training, that's not going to be the best use of my time and your money as an organization. That's just not going to work. But if you give me problems to solve, because that's in my talent DNA, solving complex issues, then I'm the best person for that. So knowing that, rather than trying to push people in these, the round hole and the square peg kind of situation, that we're trying to push somebody. I had a colleague, and she's on the call, so I'm going to use her as an example. Don't put your hands up, we don't want to know. So she was fantastic with running payroll for hundreds and hundreds of people. She would never make a mistake. She's a numbers person. She's a process person. You give her task to do on her computer, she's fantastic. Now, never allow her to interact with human beings. And I always said that. I'm like, hey, you cannot talk to people like that. You cannot respond to people like that. And then, I guided her, her HR director guided her, everybody was that. She would be okay for a day, and then she reverts back to her original position, which I expect everybody to be here because that's her, right? So we need to find out. So one day I was talking to the HRD and about her development plan, and she said, no, we need to teach her how to deal with people and how to speak to people because one day she will be a HRD. I'm like, she will never be a HRD, and I never want her to be a HRD because she has zero people skill. That's not her talent. I'm like, make her, or let's design her training plan or development plan to make her a reward and compensation benefit expert. She would be absolutely amazing in that. But obviously that wasn't very well received, which normally not in organizations. And it didn't really work out very well because the more you push people towards something that they are not designed for, then the person is going to disconnect and will suffer. Everybody suffers around them. Now, the second part to that if the person had known about herself, that, hey, I'm not a people person, and you have to be okay to say these kind of things. I'm not a number person. I couldn't care less about numbers. And if she had, understood this, that, hey, I'm not a people person, but I'm very good with numbers, I'm very good running systems, and, I never make mistakes, why don't I lean into that kind of talent of myself? That is self-awareness. That is self-awareness, and this is where you start looking at what am I, how do I think, what do I do really, really well? And this is where leaders start asking themselves questions. So the first part is really identifying myself as a leader. So you can do it through assessment, which I just mentioned, and I'm going to give you some questions as well. So questions that leaders can ask themselves is really all about, and really give the answer. How do I think? I guarantee you, if I ask you this question, you would not have the answer from top of your head. Because it's a very difficult question to ask or answer, very, very difficult answer. So how do I think? Then you can ask yourself the question, how do I build relationships? We have leaders in organizations, they have no idea how they build relationships. And they're just shooting randomly. You can ask yourself, how do I get things done? Because we all do get things done. But, not everybody has the same level of productivity. Not everybody has the same level of efficiency. Why? Instead of sending you for time management training, first, let's find out why you are not, how you get things done. Because then, instead of the training, maybe we can start looking at, if this is how he or she gets things done, maybe it's not the training that he needs, because now we are going to force something on that person that is off the shelf is not suitable for that person. But figure out, how do I get things done, and how can I do more of those? How do I influence others? There are a lot of leaders have no idea how they influence people. A lot of leaders don't even influence people. So when I, as a leader, get to the answer to this question of how do I influence others, and the answer is, I don't influence anybody, what do I do with this information? And the answer is not training. The answer is not, Stephen Covey's 7 habits. Because we like to roll out these kind of things, but building on absolutely no foundation, the self-awareness, there is no point of any kind of training like that. How do I handle failure? How do I handle success? Those are all very good questions. How much truth can I bear? Which I started this with this question. How much truth can you take without standing up? I had once, many times, but once I had a leader and the front office team wasn't very happy with him. And he was not willing to listen to his team. So we made a session. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to sit here and just listen to your team members. And we agreed on that. And he knew that it's going to be very uncomfortable, but he was just not willing to listen. And the reason was not willing to listen because he denied himself the truth of who he is. He entertained this idea that I'm fantastic and everybody else is wrong. So when you confront people with who they are, it's very uncomfortable and they just don't like it. So the guy stood up 5 times and left the meeting. I'm like, hey, you need to come back because your team members are waiting for you to tell you how they feel. So this is how it looks like when you train people on self-awareness. It's not a workshop. And my ultimate question for any kind of leader, how do I feel about being responsible for my team's well-being, happiness, or engagement, as you want to call it? Because your leader, if you are a leader, this is your ultimate responsibility. And I know you don't like it because many times I heard leaders, oh, I don't like people coming with their emotional stories. Okay, that's great, but why don't you like it? And when I ask this question, self-awareness, there is no answer. So once you figure this out through this assessment to coaches, one-to-one sessions, it's easier to respond. Now, the second part of leadership development program, and I always said that, and I started at the beginning, that we cannot develop leaders without their team members' input. It's impossible. Because if you as a leader go from one team to another, now you need to start the whole process together because this team is very different and they expect something else from you. So now you're going to have to find out that. And how we can find out, what kind of leader am I? First of all, you as a leader have the responsibility to ask your team members. Ask very difficult questions. Tell me, what is it that I'm really good at and what is it that I could be better at? And you need to bear the truth. You can ask questions yourself. Do my people like to be led by me? Many leaders will find the answer if they ask the question of their team members. No, I don't like to be led by you because you are moody, because you are incompetent, because you have tantrums, because you are shouting. Or I love being led by you because you are there to support, you don't micromanage me, or you micromanage me depending on what you need. ABC. So another question, do I lead by actions or by words? There are a lot of people are just talking, right? But they are not actually doing what they ask other people to do. I have seen leaders on these massive conferences talking, ideas on LinkedIn, but when you enter the organization, none of them is done. So people make that connection. And then you need to ask the feedback from your team members. So do I lead by action or words? Or just ask yourself the question. And answer honestly, because who are you lying to? Yourself. Where is that going to take us? Nowhere. What impact am I having on the well-being and morale of my team? That's a really good question to ask as a team, as a leader. What are each of my team members good at? And how can I leverage that? When I ask leaders what each of your team members are really good at, they are not so quick to answer. Then but when I ask the question what they need to improve, they have a list of things to do. And we don't know what my team members are good at. We just don't have the answer to that. What are each of my team members motivated by? Do we know the answer as a team, as a leader? We don't. Another really good question. Am I inspirational enough for anyone to follow me? Whatever that means. Are you inspirational enough, anyone to follow you? Ask yourself this question. Because if the answer is no, what are you doing in a leadership role? If nobody is following, who are you leading? Leadership roles are created to provide leadership. And when there is nobody following, there is no leadership. So a self-aware leader needs to ask these questions. Why do people follow me if they do? Is anybody following out of their will, or, they are forced to follow? Is anybody following at all? Or are my team members with me because they want to or because they need to? So when I do these exercises with leaders, sometimes it takes months, and this is how we build teams as well, right? Because once again, I would not like to have leadership development programs that are missing self-awareness development. So it's starting basically with these kind of questions, identifying, spending 2 months, 3 months with every leader to really lay the foundation of who am I, how do I respond to the world, and how the world is responding to me. And once we have that very clear understanding, and once the person understands and is okay with it, then we can start moving forward and send the person, based on the self-awareness and understanding, to leadership programs. Because now we understand what kind of leader that person could be, right? Don't get caught up in leadership styles. There is no such a thing as leadership style. Right? Because if we teach one person, this is the leadership style you need to, then the person is going to apply that one style to every situation. Now, that's the worst thing to do, right? So then the question raises, how many leadership styles do we want to teach other people? Okay, now that's another mess that we are likely to create. So the best way possible and the simplest way is going back to who am I, and build my leaderships and create my leadership figure and style based on that. Sometimes I'm very assertive. In areas, I'm very lenient. In areas, I had a colleague that, you would never hear him shouting or anything, but when there was crisis situation, the person stepped up and shouted it. I'm like, wow, good for you. I've never seen it. But then I saw a very different aspect to that person, right? So asking people and leaders, who are you? And getting them to know themselves, what they are good at, what they are not good at, how they think, how they feel, what their core values are. This is the first step. This is ground zero for professional development. If you guys have any question, you just put your hands up. I'm going to have another 4 minutes and we wrap it up. If you want to have any question, I'm happy to answer. But it's really not laying the foundation for leadership development. What is the point of that? Is literally the definition of wasting money. So know yourself. It's the same as in any kind of relationship. We tell people, don't get married if you are unhappy, because, you are just going to make another person unhappy. That's not going to solve your problem. And it's the same with leadership. If you don't know yourself, how are you going to lead other people? How are you going to manage other people if you don't even understand how am I going to respond when somebody calls sick every single week? Right? Because your response will be depending on it. How am I going to handle a stressful situation? Because leaders love to give the stress to their employees, right? Because they don't know how to deal with it, so they just push it down to the lower ranks, right? But a self-aware leader knows that, hey, now I'm pissed off, Maybe it's not the best way, or maybe I need to start communicating this to my teams, and not after that, not spending my time apologizing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shout at you. Really? That's not a great strategy. Don't shout at people if you don't want to. But why did you shout? That would be my first question. Is this because you put yourself in a situation, in a role that is not suitable for you? Is this that you put yourself in a role where your capabilities and capacities and your personality, there's a massive mismatch because you went for the title and the money? These are the questions that leaders need to ask themselves. Be in the role for the money. I have no problem with it, but let's come clear about it, because then we can ask the question, how is that going to impact the team and the people around you if you are only here to make money? And also leaders need to sometimes ask themselves the question, do I have the ability, or can I do this job? Because many times the answer is no. There would be a better job somewhere else for you, where you could be happier and people could be happier with you, working with you, alongside with you. So this is where self-awareness development starts. It's years and years, it's a continuous process. So this is why I don't understand why companies are so eager to invest in one-off leadership trainings, you know, but not that worth absolutely nothing, but not investing in coaches, for example, that would provide leaders a continuous sounding board, because these exercises, developing self-awareness alone is very difficult, and we always advise to have somebody to help you. Is a mentor, is a coach, it's an outside person, but this is what you need to, these are the questions that you as a leader must start before you even go there. Imagine if we did that with managers, freshly, newly promoted managers. I guarantee you that the turnover would be reduced significantly, because we could weed out managers who are not suitable going forward. And we would not weed them out because we said you are not suitable. They would realize, you know what, this is not for me. So you guys, that's all I have for today. Self-awareness. It's all about that. Start with that before, put it in your L&D structure, put it in your talent development or talent management structure, and do not do any leadership training without self-awareness development. If you need help with that, you can message me all the time. And thank you so much, and enjoy the weekend. It's Friday. I hope you guys enjoyed, so give me a thumbs up if it was useful. And I'll let you go. Thank you so much. Let you go and enjoy the weekend. Thank you, guys. Bye.